Alright, so in this video I'm going to do a couple of examples of how to simplify radicals, which is going to be what your quiz is on tomorrow. Now it is really important that you know these numbers here, which are your perfect square factors. Okay? Because that's how you are going to simplify radicals. Okay, is using these perfect square factors. So with a problem like this, you're going to first just focus on simplifying what's underneath this radical. So the 8 is just going to come down, that's sitting outside of the radical symbol. We're going to use that later after we are done simplifying our radical. But this 8 can actually be split into one value that is a perfect square, which is root 4. And then what am I going to multiply 4 by to get 8? Well, that's going to be 2. So if I do root 4 times root 2, that will give me root 8. Now the reason why I have to do that is so that I can actually pull out the perfect square, which in this case is going to be a 2. So I'm going to again bring my 8 down, and I'm multiplying these things together, remember, and I'm also going to have my root 2. So I have 8 times 2 times root 2. And 8 times 2 is 16. And then I have my root 2. So my simplified answer of 8 root 8 is 16 root 2. And again, I did that knowing these perfect square factors. Okay? You should always be asking yourself, is there a perfect square factor for the number that's under the radical symbol as you're doing these along the way? The next problem that I want to look at is the square root of 9 over 20. And again, you always want to ask yourself, is there a perfect square factor? Well, based on what we know, we can actually separate the 9 and the 20 by putting them under their own radical symbols. Okay? Because of the division, it lets me do that. Now, you have a couple of choices. You could go ahead and simplify the root 20 now, just to make it less work for you. And in this case, I can definitely simplify the root 9. The square root of 9 is 3, so I'm going to go ahead and simplify that right now. Okay? Now, root 20 I can break up into 4 times 5. And I know that 4 is a perfect square factor. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and just multiply by root 20 over root 20, you could also do that. But this is just going to make my numbers a little bit easier to work with. Okay? So that's going to leave me with 3 over 2 root 5. Now the only thing I have to get rid of now is the root 5. So that's what I want to multiply the numerator and the denominator by, is root 5 over root 5. Okay? So 3 times root 5 is 3 root 5. And 2 root 5 times root 5, well, I just multiply the two 5's together, and I get 2 times, those just basically go away. I could say root 25, but I know that the square root of 25 is 5. So I really don't even have to do that. I could just say 2 times 5. Because ultimately I'm trying to get rid of that radical on the bottom of the denominator. So when I simplify that, it's going to give me 3 root 5 over 10. Now again, going back up here to this step, I could have just taken this 3 over root 20, and I could have multiplied by root 20 over root 20. That would have been fine. You would have just had some simplifying to do at the end of the problem. But this will still produce the answer of 3 root 5 over 10, no matter which way you do it. Okay? So always ask yourself, is there a perfect square factor? Or is it a perfect square, one or the other? And then use those perfect square factors 4, 9, 16, 25, etc. Okay? The last one I want to do is just some basic multiplication. So when I have a number sitting outside the radical, they go together. So I'm going to do 3 times 5. And 3 times 5 is 15. And now I'm going to look at what goes under the radical, which is 5 times 6. And 5 times 6 is 30. Now you have to ask yourself, is there a perfect square factor of 30? The answer to that is Well, the way I'm going to figure that out is I'm going to start with half of it and test the numbers. So I'm going to start with 15, because half of 30 is 15. Okay? Now my next lowest perfect square is 9, because 15 is actually not a perfect square. Does 9 divide into 30? No. So I'm going to go to my next lowest perfect square, which is a 4. Does 4 go into 30? No. So you are done. 15 root 30 is as simple as it gets. Okay, but you always have to do that check along the way. Okay. Now I also wanted to talk about a couple of the problems that you had to do for homework last night in order to help you with some more complicated problems when you had to rationalize a denominator. So I'm going to do a problem from your worksheet page 211, and I'm going to do letter N. Okay, and letter N was 3 root 6 over root 2. Okay, so again, I'm trying to rationalize the denominator, so I multiply by root 2 over root 2. So root 2 times root 2 is just 2. And then 3 root 6 times root 2 is I'm going to keep the 3. I don't multiply the 3. I multiply the 6 and the 2. Only the things under the radical. So that's going to be root 12. Now, usually at this point I would be done. However, if you notice, the number under the radical still has a perfect square factor, which is 4. So I'm going to have to break this up into 3 times root 4 times root 3, because 4 times 3 is 12, divided by 2. Now I'm going to simplify that. 3 times 2 times root 3 over 2. So what I did is I took the square root of 4, which is 2. Now notice 2 is a factor on the top and bottom, so I can cross that out, and I'm left with 3 root 3. Okay, so all of this is just either rationalizing the denominator or combining like terms with the multiplication, or it's simplifying the radical. Okay? I hope this helps. Good luck studying for your quiz tomorrow.